All right, so welcome to class number 6 of Shari Yehud with commentaries by Reb Hillel of Parich. We're starting a little bit later because it's been 2 weeks and everybody's a little bit outside of the schedule. I just want to tell you that we're going to do a class next week, and then we're going to have to take another break for Pesach. And it'll be a month's break. So we'll come back together on May 5th. And, hopefully, I know Pesach cleaning is crazy time, but hopefully during that month, people can also use that as an opportunity to do some hitbonenut into what we've learned so far, and not just, leave it for a month and then come back. But, everybody can do whatever they can do. So what we're going to do today is just to reorient ourselves. I'll take you through the big picture summary of where we are. And then I'll give you a summary of the Oimek of Chochmah, which is what we did the last time we were together, because it was a lot of information. And then we'll just go through and have a discussion about what the Oimek of Chochmah is, go into it in more detail to clarify it, because it is quite a lot of information. I'm just trying to see here, it's a little bit confusing for people in Israel because the clocks changed, but I see a couple people from Israel. All right. Yes. Okay, so we have people who are still joining. Let me see, what am I going to share? All right, so just to put us back into perspective, the big picture, where we've come from. So these are my one-line summaries. So starting from the beginning, just to see where we are. Reb Hillel says to us, if you want to know Hashem and experience that there's nothing but Hashem, then you have to do hitbonenut, coming out of the idea of Shema. And in order to understand what hitbonenut is, we first need to understand the 3 parts of the brain, Chochmah, Bina, and Das. And then what he first does is gives us a general idea, a general picture of Chochmah, Bina, and Das, and then we start to go into the details. So the general perspective of what is Chochmah, Bina, and Das is that Chochmah is the intellectualization of the essence of the subject matter above the level of letters. And Bina is the enclothing of Chochmah in explanations utilizing letters. Or to put it in another way, Chochmah is sensing and insight, and Bina is the detailed understanding. So Chochmah is above letters. You just experience it, or you sense it, what it is. In that case, it was the beauty of the building. And then Bina is the detailed understanding of why the building is beautiful and bringing it into explanations. And then we looked at Das, which is his kashrus, the bonding of the person to the subject matter. And we also looked at the source of Das, which is a hush, a sense or an appreciation, which is the connection to the desire, to the ratzon, which is rooted in the person's neshama. And then we started to go into more detail, where we want to look at the details inside of Chochmah and details on Bina and details of Das. So we started with Chochmah. And the first thing we needed to do was understand what is Omek, what is the depth. And we understood that it's an ayin. It's a place where 2 things meet. And we had the 3 different examples of the corner, of dusk, and of the teacher and the pupil. And then we looked at Omek of Chochmah. And this is what so now really what we're doing is we're looking at the details of Chochmah, Bina, and Das. And this is one of the ways that one is meant to learn that first you need the big picture, like a general perspective, and then you go into the details, and then you take the details and you put them back into the big picture. And it's almost like your mind it exercises your mind. So right now we're inside of the details. Okay, so this is just a line-by-line summary of what we learned last week, just to bring your mind back to where we were. So you can either follow by reading what's here, or if you want, you can close your eyes and just listen and imagine, what it is that I'm describing, because that's also part of the Hitbonenut process. So we looked at Chochmah, and usually we think of Chochmah as being mashpia to Bina, but it is actually makabel from the Koach Hamaskil, which is higher than Chochmah. So usually we understand that Chochmah gives to Bina, but where does Chochmah receive from? So Chochmah receives from what we call the Koach Hamaskil. What is the Koach Hamaskil? The Koach Hamaskil dwells in the spiritual moisture, in the concealed mind, which is above the membranes that surround the 3 brains of Chabad. Okay, so that's what we looked at last week, that the 3 brains are surrounded by a membrane, and above that is a space before you get to the skull, and that's, in Chassidus, we call that the Koach Hamaskil. There's spiritual moisture that exists in that space. So now the revealed Chochmah dwells in the right side of the brain and has the ability to receive shefa, receive influence from the spiritual power of the Koach Hamaskil. This is drawn down like a flash of lightning, the flash of intellectual insight. This is the beginning of the revelation of intellect in the mind, which is called the Yod of Chochmah. And when this shefa is included in the Koach Hamaskil, it is called Pele or Alef. So just to reiterate that, now when we talk about the revealed Chochmah, we're not talking about the Omek of Chochmah. We're talking about, because the Omek is really that place that joins the Chochmah to the Koach Hamaskil. But in order for us to understand where the Omek is, the Reb Hillel of Parich has to talk about the revealed part of Chochmah, which we'll learn next week is really the Rochav of Chochmah. So the revealed Chochmah is in the right brain, and it receives from the Koach Hamaskil, and when this shefa is received in Chochmah, it's like a flash of lightning, like a flash of insight, where you say, where did that come from? And that's kind of the Koachma, like, what is it? And you get it all in one kind of flash of insight. Okay, so in order for this flash of insight to come into Chochmah, we need tzimtzum. And there's there's a tzimtzum in the mashpia, and there's a tzimtzum in the makabel. So there's a tzimtzum in the Koach Hamaskil, and there's a tzimtzum in Chochmah itself. There needs to be a tzimtzum in the one who is giving and also the one that is receiving. So first of all, there needs to be a tzimtzum in the light of the spiritual power of conception, which is the Koach Hamaskil. So there needs to be a tzimtzum in the Koach Hamaskil because it has a limitless ability to conceptualize without measure. And this is called Hayuli. That's a Greek term, which we'll discuss a little bit later in more detail. So the Koach Hamaskil has this endless ability to conceptualize. So it needs to do a tzimtzum to continue. The tzimtzum is the setting aside of itself, of oneself, in order to conceptualize one particular idea. So there's the vastness of the Koach Hamaskil needs to be focused into one particular idea. And similarly, in the revealed Chochmah, in the right side of the brain, there needs to be a bitul of the ego through great toil. And that is the tzimtzum, or the ayin of the makabel, which is the most important as it awakens the ayin of the mashpia. So in Chochmah, the way that the ayin is created, a space is created, is through higia. And that's a word that will come up a lot. It comes through great toil, that the Chochmah is able to make itself bitul, make space for something new to come in. Because as we all know, if a cup is full, you can't add anything to it. So there needs to be an emptying on some level in order to receive something from a higher place. So the bitul of Chochmah is the omek of Chochmah. It is not part of the mahut of Chochmah at all. So it's not actually part of Chochmah. It affects the bond with the Koach Hamaskil. The omek of Chochmah affects the bond with the Koach Hamaskil, so that it manifests a revealed flow of Chochmah, which is the Barak HaMavrik. So the omek of Chochmah is the space where the Koach Hamaskil and Chochmah meet. And we learned before that there needs to be an ayin in that space, where two things meet in order for them to have an exchange, like we learned before with the teacher and the pupil. So there needs to be an ayin. There needs to be this omek, where there's a there's a pass of shefa from one to the other. And the omek is called the ketov chochmah, which we'll learn about later. Okay, so then we had a mashal. Let me just take these out. So in order to try and understand this better, Reb Hillel gives us a mashal, an analogy. And he speaks about a spring of water coming from the ground. And there are two levels in the spring. There's the revealed spring as it appears above the ground, and the concealed spring, the Mayin Satum, which are the gidim of water, the veins of water that run through the ground that are included in their source, which is the underground aquifer, the Tohom. The deeper the Tohom, the cleaner will be the water, and more of a Mayim Chamim, living water. So it is in the Nimshal, the Tohom is the Koach Hamaskil, and the revealed spring is the Chochmah in the right brain. The deeper the Giddim reach into the earth, meaning the deeper their source, the stronger will be the revelation in the revealed spring, and the cleaner it will be of dross and impurities, in other words, mistakes, making it living waters. And then the entire process is repeated in the Nimshal. So, okay, so that's what we looked at last week. And wanted to, okay. So somebody just in the chat. Okay. Yeah, sometimes I'm very open to people correcting my Hebrew. I'm very much in the process with the Hebrew. Okay, so I want to hand it over to Mila to go deeper into this process of, you know, what it is that we're experiencing here in the Koach Hamaskil and Chochmah. Mila, you muted.
Yeah, yeah. Let me just unmute myself. Okay, great. Welcome. Thank you so much, Neria. That was a beautiful summary. Yeah, we are in this very, very interesting part of this. For me, when we started learning, was the beginning of really understanding how fascinating this work is, because Koach Hamaskil is one of those interesting and beautiful I don't even want to call it space, but powers that we have of our soul, and we all have it. This is the beauty of it. So I want to share the mind map that we are working off. Let me just share my screen. So yeah, please visit this mind map. As we're moving along, I'm adding more details to it, and we're not going to go into all the details because we already have a beautiful summary from Nuria, but it definitely provides us like a visual flow of what exactly Rabbi Hillel is doing. Right, he's beginning with Shema. He asking needed questions. We are left with 3 questions: understanding what is the process of Isbonanus, why we have the double noon, and why Bina. And on right, I keep all the Masholim in this purple. Now, why Masholim are very important? It's because through Mashal, this is something that is very, very close to us. We live in the physical world. That's why the Mashalim are very physical. And when we understand the process of how the mashal works, we understand through this the spiritual concept that our masters try to explain to us. So we went through Chachma. Chachma and Bina were giving us 2 mashalim of a beautiful building. It's actually a beautiful synagogue, and the Talmudic discussion of egg born on Yom Tov. Then we went into Das. We understood that there are indicators of Das is that a person is fully focused and doesn't think about other things and forgets about self and forgets about time. And that it's rooted in Chosh. And then he gave an example of somebody who wants to do Chesed in a very natural way. And I found this actually in a very cute picture of, siblings feeding each other. And you see, from little kids how the kindness is an essential, and it's a very natural state of being. Then we went into understanding where Rabbi Hillel said, okay, in order for us to understand what's his bonus and what's the process is, we need to, besides understanding Chochma, Bina, and Das in a general terms, we really need to understand what they compound of, which is Omek, Orech, and Rochav. Yeah, this is, we're going a little bit in a 3-dimensional, and we're leaving this whole notion of up, down, and flat, 2-dimensional, right? We really want to make sure that we understand how the structure of the Seder Hishtalshelus works. And interestingly, once we really understand that literally could be applied to any areas of life, because it uses the same system. It's the same Seder Hishtalshelus. We'll live within Seder Hishtalshelus. So whatever that Seder is, it will be applied to everything. So we gave a mashal of corner, bin hashmashes, and the Rav and Talmud. Okay. Then he brought a Gashmistic example, which is the way Ma'ayan works. And I did a little research. It's definitely something very beautiful. And, we're really going to be going into this diagram. When he mentions there in a text, if you remember, he says that the deeper the aquifer, the deeper the Gidim goes, and this is our Gidim. Let me just do the annotation. Okay. 1 second. The spotlight. Choose the spotlight. Okay, so we are here, right? So these are the Gidim. Right, as we see, I found was very interesting that there's unconfined aquifer, and then there's a confined aquifer. And, there are many layers, this is just in general terms. And we see the well, that people usually dig. We don't see the water gushing out of it, right? Because it's coming actually from unconfined aquifer, meaning the pressure is not so strong there. And the artesian wells, if anybody, witnessed them, they're actually beautiful, beautiful thing to see. They literally just like, the water gushing out from earth. And they are coming from a much deeper source within the earth. So we see even in aquifer, and this is exactly what he's saying in the text, the deeper the Gidim go, how can we know how deep the Gidim are? We see only here. This is what our eyes could see. If we see a well with a quiet water, we mean that it's not so deep. However, if we see the artesian well, that whatever that is, it's like, pouring out, we see that it's coming from a deeper source, meaning we don't need to actually travel to there. There are indicators. Okay, and as you could see, I put the indications are here. The deeper the Gidim are coming from, the stronger the force of the revealed wellspring will be. And that's how we know. So all the indications are, are right here, meaning all the rules, like you could see, meaning the conclusions that we see from it, are there. And, this is another, picture here where we could actually see the flow, and get an idea about it. Now, we touched a little bit the level of Pele and Alef. And how does that apply to our discussion? So the level of Pele would be the Tahom, that deep aquifer there. Alef already has a formation. For example, I had a very interesting discussion yesterday. We were coming from 770, and one of my neighbor, who is a computer programmer, he stops me. He's like, "Oh, Mila, that we have good news I wanted to share with you." And I'm like, okay. I'm thinking like, what's the good news about? And he says to me that he actually composes music. And I'm like, what? I know this guy to be a computer programmer. I was like, he's a composer. I was so shocked. And he says, yes, yes. I mean, I know this family for about 20 years. I had no idea that this guy is composing music. And I was like, wow, I was so surprised. I was like, yeah. And he says, you know what it is? He felt that he wants to compose for the Rebbe's birthday, the nigun. As you know, that there are nigunim being composed every single year. And he decided that he wants to compose a music for the Rebbe's thing. And he shows me the recording from the studio about, this nigun that he composed. I was shocked. This was so beautiful. And Bezrat Hashem, I'll share with you when it's going to be permissible. And I asked him, I was like, how did that happen? He said, well, since my childhood, I had an inclination to kind of like create nigunim, like create tunes. And that's the level of Aleph, what we're talking about, right? Meaning everybody has the access to Pele. Everybody has the access to become a composer. Anybody. However, in some people, it's already on the level of Aleph. It's not revealed yet, but it's there. It's a potential, but it's a potential that doesn't have to be, too much digging processes. And then he said, and then he said about 2 weeks ago, he was thinking about, a birthday present to the Rebbe. And an idea came to his mind, and he said, how about you're going to create a nigun? And he said, and I started thinking and thinking and thinking about it and trying this tune and that tune and, da na 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 na. And then he said, and then I just went to sleep. And I woke up and I started hearing the nigun. He said, I heard the nigun in my head. I right away wrote it up. Well, he's a computer programmer, so he figured out how to write music. Okay. And that was it. And here how this nigun is born. And I was like, you know what? Thank you so much. Because this is exactly what I needed. I needed a good mashal for today's class about what is Koach Hamaskil is. And I was so delighted. It's like beautiful. This is what it is. Meaning he had a yigia. Look at this. It's mamash exactly how Seder Hishtalshalis works. He had already a talent on the level of Aleph, meaning it didn't have to really dig too much. But he wasn't sure. He's a computer programmer. He's not a composer. Everybody knows him as a computer programmer. And, he had a desire. Here we go. He had a ratzon to give a present to the Rebbe. An idea came to his mind, probably from the level of Aleph of his Koach Hamaskil. How about you do something about this talent? Okay, that was like subconscious thought. And he started, thinking, maybe I should choose this, maybe I should choose that, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. So I asked him how long it actually took you to do all this thinking. He's like, it was about 3-4 hours. Well, that's a good amount of time. So he was like, I said, it was very late at night. And it was like thinking maybe this, maybe that. He looked at the Rebbe's kapitel, maybe this passage, maybe that passage. Da-da-da, da-da-da. It was like thinking, meaning he put his effort into it. And lo and behold, he wakes up in the morning with a ready nigun. His Koach Hamaskil oversleep literally produced a nigun for him based on his desire. That was it. He wakes up and he sees this artesian well flowing right out. And if you see him, he's usually a very reserved person. He usually does not talk to me in the hallway of our building. Okay. But when he came out, he was so delighted. I was the first one to see him. And he's like, Mila, I have to tell you, this is what happened. So he's definitely on the level of Chachma. Why? Because he has a lot of chayus. You could see it's like all delighted and excited about it, right? There's Ispilus there. And it's a true Ispilus because he's like, I've never seen him so happy. Bemet. He's like, a computer program. Have you seen computer programmers? They're like this. They're walking with a computer in their heads, making all the, calculations of the codings and stuff like that. And that was for me, I was like, wow, thank you so much, because that's exactly what happened to him. He already had this level pretty much maybe over here. It was covered. And when all what he needed to do is just to tap few pushes that lasted 3-4 hours here. And his Koach Hamaskil right here said, you know what? I have a beautiful nigun just for you because you knocked on this door here. And that's it. And if we, speak long enough to beautiful, talented people, we will see that regardless of what they do, regardless of what's the tchum, what the area of the talent that they have, they all say, now, you might ask a question, Mila, what if I don't have that talent on the level of Aleph, right? It depends on the ratzon. However, if a person has a very strong ratzon, that ratzon will command Koach Hamaskil to produce. He would have to work a little bit harder, but anybody could compose nigunim. Anybody could draw. Anybody could do anything out there. It really depends on the ratzon, if a person has a ratzon for that or not. Even with the person who is on his level, who has the level of Aleph, if he wouldn't have the ratzon to compose, he's not going to come up with a nigun in his head. So it's obviously, even for people with talents, they need a level of yigia, which is very important. And specifically for those who may not necessarily have that talent on a surface level. So are there any questions pertaining to that? Okay, somebody just said, right, I think his ratzon was the starting point isn't with the toil of his 3-4 hours that tapped into his Koach Hamaskil, for sure, yeah. It was definitely his toil, but he also had a ratzon. Otherwise, if a person doesn't have a ratzon, why would they toil? Yes. Yeah, I think you want to unmute yourself, Miriam. You want to say something?
Yeah. It seems as if he had the idea and he worked hard, but the nigun came from a place that was beyond his mind. So
Exactly.
what is that? Where's that?
It's coming from the level of Pele. It came from the level of Pele. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where the wonder is. It's like he even surprised himself. You know, sometimes we could surprise ourselves, right? This is what Pele is. Pele is a wonder. It's a surprise.
Okay. I was wondering about that.
Yeah. He was like, oh, wow, this is what Pele is.
Okay.
Even the greatest composers, they tap into that level. They know how to do it, you know, and we get better at it with every, you know, tap. But there are some times where, for example, it was me doing a newsletter. I like doing graphics. And in my school, there was, I don't know, I got tired of our newsletter and I didn't like it. It was, you know, and I had this great desire to design a good newsletter. And, you know, I looked through many different designs. I hired a designer and I didn't like them. I paid them a lot of money. And it was like, you know, this very naggy process. And at one point, I really wanted a good newsletter. And I went, you know, shopping for different things. And I shopped for a template. And I found. And like overnight, I spent 9 hours working on it throughout the whole night. And it came out a beautiful, beautiful piece. Anybody who says like, whoa. But yeah, but that was like, you know, it was a painful process because, you know, I had the desire. I saw it with my moach chochma, obviously. There was a vision there. But I felt like there was this aspect of darkness. I didn't know how to do it. But while I started doing it, my hands and everything else moved in the right direction. I was able to put it together. So some people need to go to sleep and then the idea is being born. And some people actually create through doing. But, you know, both of them are different ways of yigia. For example, you know, when I work with clay, you know, as you work with clay, things become, you know, you start creating things. Not necessarily that idea precedes and then you create that idea. Is as you work with the clay, you create. So it doesn't matter, but both of them require yigia. Both of them require the direct input of, you know, working with the matter. Okay. So any questions? Mehmet, it's a long process. We're going to be having, you know, a long break after the next time as well. So if you have any questions stored in you somewhere, that you don't understand something, relationship of something with, something else.
So, Mira,
Um,
first, I think I might have lost what you said about how Aleph fits into all this. Like if a person has the Ratzon, but he has no skill or talent in that area, then
So he will create his Aleph. The Aleph is hidden, even, you know what I mean? The Aleph is a yet in the level of Pele. What is Aleph? Aleph and Pele, these are the same letters. It's just Pele, it's deeper. So he would have to work harder to form Pele into Aleph. And then it comes to a revealed
does
part.
the Pella come, is the Pella related to Ratzon? Does that create Pella?
Soon, later on in Ratzon creates the level of Pele. Ratzon is higher than Pele. Ratzon is in the crown. It's a level of Keser, meaning it's above the skull. Koach Hamaskil is below the skull. And the skull is the Ratzon. Does that make sense? So the Ratzon governs the Koach Hamaskil. That's why we say Shum davar la'omed bifnei haratzon, right? The Ratzon gets everything done. Skull is another level of potential. It's a potential of a flint stone. It's a stone, right? It's hard. And you could just, strike a match and it will burn. So that's another level of potential. It's a Ratzon.
So is
Even
that
if a
telling us
person
that
doesn't have any fire
you can
in him, there's a two
That
level,
te-
there's a, what?
is that telling us that is the ultimate message that you can do anything you want to do? Want meaning if you have the Ratzon.
Exactly.
But how
Meaning-
do you know if something is authentic Ratzon, if it's the real thing?
You get obsessed with it. That's how you know, you get obsessed with it. If somebody, I do a little bit of marriage counsel, and one of the ways of, finding out if people really connect with each other, I ask usually the guy, I was like, usually, why did you get married? And almost all of them, they say that they got obsessed with this girl. That they go out and they go home and they just can't, they start thinking about her and there's no life. That's a Ratzon. That's it. She may not necessarily be the most beautiful woman. She may not necessarily be the most talented. It doesn't matter. It becomes an obsession. We get obsessed with ideas. Why this guy decided to do a Rebbe's Nigun? It's an obsession. He's a computer programmer. He makes tons of money. Why you all of a sudden you want to create a Nigun for the Rebbe? What's the story? For example, why, me and Naria are obsessed about this piece of work. We have no idea. There's so many mamar. And there's something about Shara Yichud that constantly draws us to this. Can anybody know? No idea. No, my husband already makes a joke. Anything that, any questions that people ask, I was like, oh yeah. He's like, which chapter Shara Yichud is that? He already knows that. All answers are in Shara Yichud. Or Kuntra says Spilos. Okay, no problem. There's another Kuntras added. But some people are obsessed about Rambam. Yeah, I know guys that they know Rambam in and out. They did 18 times, the whole entire Rambam. Okay, and some people get obsessed about Mitzrayim. Why all of a sudden? There's a ratzon, there's a call upon the Shama that is there, and we need to listen to it. But sometimes, even if we try to ignore it, it will surface and over, and it will be just very, very persistent and very bold, because the ratzon is a very bold. We don't need to create a ratzon. If we just listen and not block it, a lot of things will be just, surfacing. But yeah, so there are two levels of potential. One mashal is given, we're going to learn it, is a hot coal, where there is no fire visible, but all we need to do is just to blow it. You blow on a coal, and the fire will come up. You know what I'm talking about? You make a Okay. The other one is a flintstone. Flintstone is cold and wet. It sits in the bottom of the ocean for centuries. You take it out, you strike it, the fire comes out. Something completely the opposite of what the nature of flintstone is, right? It's hard and cold, and yet it's able to produce fire. So this is another level of potential, and that's the level of Pele. So the level of Aleph would be the coal that all what you need to do is just blow on it. That's what the guy had to do. Well, if I'm going to compose a nigun, that's not going to be 3-4 hours, okay? That's probably going to be 33 hours of work. So everybody is, whatever they had.
Mila, there's a question from Sarah.
Sure. How can one arouse someone else's ratzon? Oh, that's is there a trick one can use when working with children to arouse the ratzon and thus create the talent and success with children and adults alike? Well, so then welcome to our river of change to create other people's ratzon, right? So, I mean, if we could see them being something, we're holding space for them, depending what the ratzon you want, right? Like, let's say you want a child to love to learn Torah, let's say. Well, there are children who are not necessarily like, the brightest, they don't like learning. It happens. So instead of, let's say, saying, oh, well, you can't really learn, well, that's okay, you're going to be a good businessman, right? Can we hold a space for them and actually see them in our mind's eye as being like one of this, biggest Talmid Chachams out there? Can we see them? If we can see them and we practice holding that vision, we're holding that space for them, right? So this energetically, that space is created for them. And then they could see themselves, because we as an adult hold much stronger energetic field than children. I mean, there are some children who, also have Kanai Hara, but I'm talking about usually. Yeah. So if we could hold that energetic field for them, for that success, we actually see them successful. It's actually a very feminine quality. We say in Eshes Chayil, to Pia Halichos Besa, right? That she sees. Tzipia is it's from high up, right? When you could actually, I don't know, like you are in this mountain and you could see far. So if you, hold that vision, every day, do your mental rehearsal of seeing how this guy is going to be giving beautiful, amazing Dvar Torahs, I don't know, for thousands of people. You're holding that vision, and yeah, they're not going to have much freedom of choice, but not to follow it. It's still going to be their choice, but they see that energy and they feel that energy. If we're looking, oh, well, is this, and even with Rambam, look what happened to him. Probably if he's going to be growing up in our generation, he would have, OTPT and everything else, and SEATs and all the special education spectrum stuff. Is until the age of 8, 9, he had, had difficulty reading and comprehending Mishnayos, and his father, he was exceptionally disappointed. He was Dayan of Cordoba, that he used to call him, you are son of a butcher, because the story how his father got married. Yeah, you familiar with the stories? No? Okay.
No.
He was Dayan of Cordoba, and he was quite elder bocher. He was busy with his learning. He didn't find a shidduch suitable or something like that. He was an exceptionally bright person. And then he saw a dream that he has to go to this butcher and marry his daughter. And he was like, no, forget about it. The dream repeated itself. And he figured like, okay, he has to follow through this. And he goes in Itaka in a town that he didn't even know. the dream said that he has to, find the name of the butcher and everything else. And he found, and he saw he had a beautiful girl, and that's it. He married his wife, his wife, and she gets pregnant with Rambam. And during the birth, she passes away. It was on 14th of Nisan. So the boy grows up, and he is an ignoramus, right? He cannot learn, he cannot understand, blah, blah, blah. So his father would get frustrated, and he would call him the son of a butcher. You understand? Meaning the son of a butcher was like simple man. It wasn't like, a son of a dayan or something like that. So there's a whole story how Rambam ran away from the house. Don't tell it to any of your kids. And then he literally ran away, and he stayed for a few years in another yeshiva. And that's how he became, talented. And it's a very interesting story. You could look it up. But yes, he definitely tapped into his Koach Hamaskil. He had a run to study. There was some mental limitations that were there in place, but the Ratzon was able to break through to them through those krumiyas hamakifim legimel moichin, right? That's what we actually use the word breakthrough. Break through what? Through this limitation of this very thin membranes that are actually holding our perception of how we see things from the higher reality. And if a people able to break through to that, yeah, for sure.
One of the things that also happens in that membrane, when they talk in the Mashal about the water being cleansed, this is my perception, is that sometimes we will bring in information that gets distorted, that's not always correct. And it's because it's kind of been distorted in the membrane. So then you have to go back and do more work to cleanse it, to clean it. So not everything that we bring from the Koach Hamaskil is necessarily so pure and correct. It, as the Mashal says, the deeper you dig, like the more gear you do, the more it will be cleansed, and the deeper it will come from a deeper place. So often think about, those membranes, what it means to bring something that's clear and that's clean and that has the chayos, the ma'im chayim.
Right.
And there's
So
quite
Nechama is the skim.
yeah,
What?
there a few comments in the chat.
Yeah.
First of all,
Fuse it with Tanuk, right? I mean, Gitti, you're touching on a very interesting thing, because soon we're going to see where Tanuk takes place. Definitely, yeah. It's you must have, because Ratzon comes with Tanuk. Because what's Ratzon? Ratzon is a desire. We usually don't desire things that we don't have pleasure in. There's a pleasure precedes it. That's a pnimis hakeser, right? Then we have the desire to have it, but tmidus, always want to have it. If a person doesn't have a desire, pleasure in something, they usually don't desire. They despise it. They run away from it. People usually don't desire something. If a person wants to see his kid in a particular light, infused with Torah mitzvahs, whatever that is, they have pleasure. They have nachas from it. This is what nachas is. Nachas is a pleasure. And empower them with trust, definitely. Is it possible that there's a fine line between what you are describing and parents putting pressure on a child? No, we're not talking about pressure. We're talking about holding space. When I'm putting pressure, that means there is a space in me that doesn't believe that that's what's going to happen, right? A bitachon and holding space and holding that vision for that child's success, I'm not putting any pressure. I'm holding my vision, which I'm responsible for. And the child has his responsibility to take a tramp, basically, to use that energy to rise up to the occasion. But that's not putting pressure. There's no pressure, actually. Yeah, but that's, a different type of, not different type of work, but that's, yeah. No, it's not judgmental. There's no judgment there. It's not coming from from the Bina. It's more a Chachma. Chachma is the vision. Judgments come from Bina. Chachma is the insight. And they come from Chitzonius Bina. The judgment, yeah. But that's, we're really going into off the subject from here.
Mila, I have a question. The text uses this Greek word, Hayuli, or
Hayuli, yeah.
Not sure exactly what it is.
I think there are three ways to pronounce it. I've seen people pronouncing it. Yeah, it's Hayuli, Hayuli, Hayuli.
Okay, so that's I don't know if what does that mean literally? For me, as you were saying earlier, when I learned about the Koach Hamaskil, it really blew my mind, because it seemed to me that within the structure, it's not even like something, that's outside of like an aura or anything. It's literally between the brain and the skull. So it's inside of my system is the potential, it seemed to me, for everything, like that we could have access to infinite knowledge. And that really the process is what I decide to focus on is what I will create an Alef for. Like I will focus on one thing and kind of knock on that door, and that door will open, and then there will be something coming through from the Koach Hamaskil. But what is the Koach Hamaskil? What is a Hayuli? Is it infinite knowledge, or is it finite knowledge in an infinite kind of form?
Well, I'll tell you, Hayuli, it says Koach Hamaskil, right? It's the power to conceptualize. Meaning it has a limit of idea of das, idea of knowledge, idea of concepts. That's its limitations. But what kind of concepts is unlimited? There are many ma'amarim, and even in Shara Yichud talks about levels beyond Koach Hamaskil, that even greater potential of literally anything happening. This is within our reach, that anybody could reach. And you know what? All of us have experience with Koach Hamaskil. I don't believe there's a person on this planet Earth that did not have whatsoever connection with this Koach Hamaskil. We would not be functioning people. It's like it would be a brain damage or something like that. No, we all have brain, as you said, Nuria. Literally, it's within our, it's part of our, human structure. And I wouldn't even say Jewish. It's something. It's a human thing that we could do. What I could say that's something probably what sets us apart from animals, because animals do not have that. They have a specific program, and this is the program they are running. They don't have the capacity to move on. So if you have your siddur with you, right? In the siddur, in the brachos, we say something from Mishlei, right? It says, Musar ha'adam mina behema ayin. We say that in the brachos, right? All the way in the beginning. And the difference between a human and an animal is not. So if you are Litvak, you probably will translate it. There is no difference between human and animals. Like, come on, you're an animal, that one has desires and follows it. You have desires and you follow it. Come on, be a mensch, right? That's the message. Now, the Chassidus explains it. It's there's another explanation that the only difference between an animal and a human, that a human could say no to themselves, right? But then there's a Hasidic explanation that the difference between the animal and a human, that a human has access to the state of ayin, because this is literally what it says, Musar ha'adam mina behema ayin. And the difference between, the human and an animal is the ayin. meaning humans have access to the state of ayin, and animals don't. What is a state of ayin? A state of ayin is that I could go to my potential and literally recreate myself into a new being. And that's something animals don't have access. If I'm recreating, I'm co-creating. So if I'm co-creating, I'm not an animal anymore, right? I'm, of a higher spiritual stand. So now there's also a thing, I'm sure you're familiar, it says, Ein mazal b'Israel. There's no mazel in Israel. We could read it differently. Ein mazal b'Israel. The state of ayin is the mazel of Israel. Meaning we are the ones who, create our own mazel, basically. We write our, life's narratives. How can we do that if we could conceptualize? So it's coming from the concept. Because anything that we structure is a concept. The same thing is mi'ayin yavo izri. From where my help will come, or from ayin my help will come. So there is this need to jump into the state of ayin to bring in higher level of consciousness. Because if we're going to stay within our revealed part of the domain, we pretty much set ourselves to be who we are right now. So there is no room for growth. We're limiting. That's it. This is who I am. I'm comfortable with it. And that's going to be for the rest of my life. Well, that's boring. What we're trying to do is no. Let's do something a little bit. How can I think greater than that?
So what you're saying is, in a way, most of us, a lot of the time, we live from yesh to yesh, meaning that we don't tap into our hidden brain, and we stay in this level of just creating from what we've already created. So
exactly, and then we get depressed,
right.
And then we take antidepressants. Why we do that? Because the depression is going to create a state of pain, and we want to numb that pain. Why would you want to do that? Because that state of pain will push you to go into that state of ayin. So we said, no, we're going to numb that pain, and that's okay. Let me just live within this. And then we lose taste of life. And then we become apathic to anything. And that's pretty much, a set end.
So then just to bring it back to, we're talking here about the Omek of Chokhmah, which is the ayin of Chokhmah. It's that place where we get access to something above Chokhmah, which is the Koach Hamaskil, which is Hayuli. So it seems to me that what you're saying, you're broadening it out into our lives. And the question then becomes, how do I access the ayin? Because you've given so many beautiful examples there of the ayin. The ayin is really the place of newness, of creativity, of rejuvenation, literally we're talking here about bringing something new into the system. So it's, I find myself saying over and over again, it's the higia. You brought a beautiful example where somebody did higia, which was creating like a focus, and then they went to sleep. The guy who did the music. And that's also, we see in sleeping that there's a letting go there. There's the shimamon, in a sense. You put down your ego and a lot of your conscious mind, and that's also a space. But if you don't do the higia before, maybe that's why he uses those two words always for the makabel. He says bitul and shimamon all the time. It seems like, I'm just making this up now as I'm thinking about it, but there's two stages to it, in a sense. There must be two stages to that
because there's 2 stages of ayin, remember? But we're jumping ahead a little bit, Nuria.
No, but it's just interesting to me. I mean, I feel it's fascinating because it's such a key just to life. I know that, we haven't done this really up until now, where we're just opening it up and really looking at it in context. And I know that it does jump ahead a little bit, but.
No, you're right. I mean, I'll tell you what it is. The thing is that why am I bringing this live examples is because there is, it's very easy to study Chassidus as philosophy. And we all do that. We read a beautiful mimer and then you ask like, so. Now, when I'm not talking about Bechein. Okay, Bechein is that when we conclude. Here we can keep the concept open and say, okay, what can I do with this? Maybe I could do something with it, meaning I could already apply, meaning if I know Aleph, I can teach Aleph, right? Meaning I could find Aleph in a Siddur. I don't have to wait until I'm going to be done, with the whole thing. So can we really, look into how can we not necessarily apply? I think we could become aware of things. I don't think we need to force the outcome. But we could just become aware of things in our day-to-day life, because Chassidus, another name for Chassidus is Divrei Elokim Chaim. Have you ever wondered why there's a very interesting way of putting Chassidus? It's Divrei Elokim Chaim, right? It's the word of a living God. What is Elokim Chaim? Elokim Chaim meaning we read the book. Yeah, this is the book. Yeah, okay, you cannot see. Okay, whatever, because of my breakdown. Anyway, I'm holding a book and put it on a shelf. That's it. Where's another book? Yeah, that's when it's dead. It's not living. A biggest pilus come to us is when we recognize that the God is living and it's an alive entity. It's literally living every second through us. When we realize that, we'll be like, oh, whoa, this is interesting. And there's a constant conversation with God. That's what our life is about. We go shopping, we do this, we do that, we think about something and we see a response in the world and back and forth. So that's what Divrei Elokim Chaim. Chassidus is supposed to touch us to the point where the Mittel Rebbe says, what's his nachas? His nachas is when 2 businessmen meet in the marketplace and they start talking about Yichud Ilah, Yichud Tata. That's nachas. What does this mean? I mean, what's nachas? Okay, what's the difference if they're talking in the shul or they're talking in the marketplace? Right? He didn't say like that 2 Chassidim just talk about Yichud Ilah, Yichud Tata. He's talking about when we live our mundane life, I don't know, cooking supper, changing kids' diapers, going shopping for Pesach, cleaning. This is all mundane things that we do day to day. In that, when we find Elokim Chaim, that's nachas for the Rebbeim, because that's exactly what they wanted us to do, that we actually live this concept and we recognize Hashem through these activities. It's a very mundane activities, right? It's like, we think like, oh, I'm going to go to shul, I'm going to go to class. This is when I'm going to exercise my higher faculties. It says, no. Your Chachma and Bina are in these mundane things, and that's where you find God. So, yeah.
Mila, I think that we should go to the breakout rooms. There's just one thing that I wanted to say about the ayin as well, that I realized when you were talking about a bechein, not making a conclusion, that a question is also a kind of an ayin. It's an opening into not knowing. And an answer sometimes will shut down that question. We taught very much to look for answers. And the real process, in a sense, is to look for questions, to keep that opening. So a question, I think, is also a kind of an ayin. And we don't always have to get the answer so quickly. Yeah. It's another way to keep the ayin open.
One of the ways, I heard, one of my teachers said is like, whenever you're frustrated, that the vibration of fear, it's very similar to the vibration of excitement, energetically. So he said, you know, when you feel fear, like, you know, I don't know, you take on a big project and you're moving on something, and you're like, you know what fear is, like anxiety is, like it vibrates. It's like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? Yeah. Or he says, just say to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see what's gonna happen. You see the shift. It's the same vibration. It's like, oh my gosh, right? I'm so excited to see how it's gonna happen, how it's gonna end. So that questionary is like to see is like, oh, what's happening? And answers B'ezrat Hashem will come. Okay, great. So let's go to what is Reuven Feuerstein? Oh, Reuven Feuerstein. I love this guy, Sarah. I love him. I'm B'ezrat Hashem over the summer gonna take his workshop. He's a genius. Exactly.
You know, he passed away already.
Yeah, a while ago. No, it's like
Yeah.
3 years.
There is a video, I think the Jim has, that did you see that?
Yes,
He's speaking about the how
Rebbe and how he influenced his.
yeah.
Exactly. So even people with limited capacities, they could tap into the level of Pele and produce tremendous. And that
So my
his
question
methodology
was,
yeah.
my question was more, yeah, we know that we could tap into our own Pele. How can one tap into another's Pele? So you said with children, put the
he has a
space.
program for sure. He has a special methodology, and I think his son does a great job in developing his father's theory. He Bichlal removed the whole stigma of Ethiopian Jews as being low functioning because of their exposure and blah blah blah. You know, so a lot of all African Americans and African Israelis, they love him because there is a notion of them being like low level thinkers, you know, and he literally removed that. You know, it's a right way of yigia. It's a right way of stimulating brain so it releases, you know, and makes proper neural connections. That's what he does. He literally, you know, he figured out a way of how we can stimulate the brain so there's going to be appropriate neurostimulation. You know, yeah, and his program is amazing. Yeah, it's a very thorough, it's very organized, and you just do one page at a time, and yeah, it's where the two ions you referenced before. The two ions are in a little bit later on in chapter 1. So you could jump ahead. Yeah, over the Pesach break, you could mamash, you know, read further, and that would be an amazing preparation. Yeah.
Kitty, did you want to say something? You unmuted yourself.
Oh, no. No, I got excited about talking about Feuerstein. Maybe that what prompted it. Yeah.
So let's go into the breakout groups for a while because we only had we suddenly arrived at 11:15.
Hashem. So we're gonna do 4 rooms. Yeah, how many we have? Yeah, rooms with me.
Please stay and, you know, just speak it out. It really, whatever's coming up for you. And if you don't want to be speaking, you just let people in the group know that you just want to listen. But part of learning is speaking, not, you know, there's a limit to what you learn through listening.
Beautiful. Did he invited you as well or no, Nuria? I put
Yeah,
you
you
not to.
I
Okay,
just-
whatever. So you could just, yeah.
Ah. One unassigned participant. Mila?
Yeah, room 3 for who is one unassigned participant?
I guess
Oh, I see. This is you, no? Or no?
it's just somebody on the phone.
Oh, I see. Can they join on a phone?
Oh, in a breakout room? I don't know. Why not?
I don't know. Let's put there. Yeah, room 4. Oh, they actually did join. Oh, that's beautiful.
Okay. All right.
I think it was not bad. Let's stop the recording. We need to pause.
Okay.
Are things in Israel, Nuri?
I had a very interesting story yesterday. I learned intensely this one mimer about becoming rich. This is one of my goals. I'll let you know when I'm going to have my first million. Anyway, so my brain and everything, then I went to sleep. It was like a lot. Like I felt like, I kind of was like shifted to this new, state of being. It was also Shabbos. I'm coming back with all these thoughts. Motzei Shabbos, I meet this guy that tells me about this Koach Hamaskil situation for him. And which mimer is Yud Alef Nisan Tafshin Nun Aleph that the Rebbe gave when he became 90 years old. And it's a beautiful mimer. It's a long one, but it's worthwhile, studying it. Anyway, and we were, and then all of a sudden my daughter comes down and tells me, like, we have guests. And I'm like thinking to myself, we have guests, Motzei Shabbos, what kind of guests? So I go up. There's a very interesting individual, apparently asked my husband on the way from 770 if he could join Havdalah, which never happens by us. I'm like, okay, my kids were like very they were looking, they have no idea what's going on. So then my son, my 10-year-old, comes over to me and he says, like, very, very quietly, he says, like, who is this guest? And I look at him and what am I going to tell? I have no idea. So I told him in the ear, it's a hidden tzaddik. I felt like it was like, totally going through Baal Shem Tov things. And all of a sudden, this guy is far away from us, completely far away from us. He's looking at us, looked at me. He looked completely out of this world, okay? He looked at me and he smiled. And my son was like, I assume he was a hidden tzaddik. He's a very nice individual. So, we made Havdalah, we ate Malava Malka, that was it. And then the guy left. But yeah, that was my experience. Yes, we hosted a hidden tzaddik yesterday. Okay. Naria, let's go.
Well, no, just we want to know if you want to share anything from your discussions, any questions, any insights.
I think what Mila just said about the hidden tzaddik for our breakout room, I think that was the perfect caption. That was our discussion. That's a great topic.
Really? Oh, wow. It's actually came out of blue. I wanted to share with you. I did not listen to your discussion.
We were analyzing this idea of holding space when we're trying to create a rutzin in somebody. So what happens when people are resistant and how to deal with it. And so, yeah, you look at somebody and you say, there's a hidden tzaddik. I think you see the vision. You see the vision and then it comes out, you see?
Yeah, but one thing I'll tell you is the vision is in details. For example, I was once, working with one woman that she had difficulty, who doesn't, it's like, there was a lot of arguments with her husband, blah, 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 back and forth and all that, right? The husband never buys presents. You know what I'm talking about? It's a general, day-to-day, living with another person. And she had a lot of resentment because, there's an expectation about certain things and, when they're not fulfilled and blah, 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 and all that, which is, it happens to the best of us. And I asked her if she could write down the best case scenario in all details. And then she keeps saying, well, he'll never do this. I told her, like, don't be God. You don't know what he's capable of doing, what he's not capable of doing. Right? I said, just write down your best case scenario. And it took us 2 hours, literally 2 hours to write down detailed best case scenario. Okay, by the time we were done, okay, she goes home and he got her a present. Well, she didn't tell him anything. Understand? She didn't, that's when we create inside out. We don't need to ask for anything. We just need to create our ratzon, right? And clarify this ratzon. It's, you know what? It's like working with AI. Have you ever worked with AI, with artificial intelligence? I use it for pictures. We do a lot of, in our school, a lot of our own, deductive materials. And it's very hard. I mean, it's, those pictures are exceptionally expensive. So in Canva, you could actually create your own images, but you have to be very specific. I need a Jewish shepherd with 6, sheep. The sheep should be gray, because AI doesn't understand. You understand? It doesn't understand that. You understand? You literally have to spell it out. Otherwise, it could make you a sheep with, I don't know, with pig legs. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. So it's like Koach Hamaskil in a way. It's like your AI. You have to be very specific. Like, this is what I want. So in a way, like for this woman, tapping for her Koach Hamaskil into creating what she wants, not focusing on what she doesn't want, because the more she focuses on what she doesn't want, the more she creates it. Because ultimately, we are co-creators. So it's like, no, let's go back. What do you want? Forget about whether he's capable or not. And Hashem will provide you that. And when she went back and she saw a present that never happened, right, from, year number 2 of the marriage, okay, which is like 25-year-old marriage, it's like, was fascinating, because she genuinely just allowed that to take place by her actually saying what she wanted without making a judgment that he's incapable of delivering it. But Hashem is capable of delivering it. So why are you limiting Hashem? Right?
Mila, it's a beautiful example, the AI. I mean, I've never tested it, but the way you describe it, it's basically that there's this endless possibility, and you have to create the Aleph. I want this. And if you look at the word I is the beginning of ayin. You just have to.
And you need to put that nun of Sharei Nun, and you have to put the nun of the double nun of his Bainanus. And here we go, you got your eye. No, but it's a very cute thing. I worked with it like for the past 2 months. There was a part of me that resisted it. But then I said, well, Mila, you're not going to draw these pictures. You're not going to pay $200 for every single picture for all your workbooks. Right? If you're paying an artist, we don't have a budget for that yet. Well, unless I become rich, and then I'll just pay for somebody. And it's like, so then you create, but you have to be very specific. And it's really beautiful, because it literally creates. And then you say, no. This sheep is too big, and you have to put him behind the shepherd. You understand? You have to guide him. And then he creates a new one. And then he recreates a new one. And that's what Omek is, right? The more specific you are, the more Yegia you do, the more words you're going to put in, the better the picture will be.
What I was just, I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I know when you were describing the scenario with the person in the marriage, I'm thinking, had this idea. I wanted to develop a project and make it big, which I never did, that we should all vision boards. We should all make it part of our lives to create vision boards and include all parts of our life, the personal part, the parenting, the marriage, the community, the Rebbe, the Chassid, all of it, they're all part of a whole, but to create in each one vision, I think would be so powerful. You remind me about it. Last time I spoke about it was almost a year ago. I was with somebody and said, come on, we'll do this.
Welcome to the River of Change, Gitti. This is what this project is about.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we keep busy, right? Keep busy, doing mental rehearsals. Because keeping the vision is one thing. Actually seeing yourself in that vision on
But you
your
see that
thinking
you actually
and
wrote,
feeling and doing.
but with this woman, she wrote it down.
No, but that's part for sure. That's part of the program where you have to write down your vision.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's, yeah, for sure. But what I said it took 2 hours is because just to clarify in her mind what she wanted without any judgment, just like as this perfect case scenario, because we usually focus on the worst case scenarios. Worst case scenarios, X, Y, and Z. Why should we think about worst case scenarios?
What took so long to come up? What took so long to come to the best case scenario? But she wants a gift. That's it. And she didn't get it.
No, but he's not gonna do it because he's like this and like this and like this. And he never did it. He doesn't even pick up his socks and doesn't put it in a hamper. I don't have to tell you the marriage life.
You mean to say till she got convinced that she should actually do it?
And then there's another one. It's the Amalek was on every step of the process. It's like, well, it will never happen. You know about this abracadabra. I'm in the middle of writing this post. It's like, what's abracadabra? It's actually a Hebrew word, abracadabra. I will create as I will speak.
Evra, right, kadabra.
Kadabra, like I will speak, right? What does this mean? That means that there's a neuroscience research actually that when we speak, right? When we speak, we actually create. How we create, it's a neuroscience. Well, they're not talking about how we create in a spiritual sense. They say that, let's say when the person says, I cannot do this. There are parts of the brain that govern that particular task will literally shut down when a person verbally says with conviction that he cannot do it. Because the speech is malchus, is a governing entity, that when a person just says, oh my gosh, this will never happen, all the possibilities in the brain that were working on making that possibility will shut down because the person said that. So that's how our speech influences our brain. And the rest, for example, a person says, oh my gosh, I'm getting old. The body will go into the mode of becoming old.
True.
It's interesting. It's a research. It's not Kabbalistic or anything.
It's very big now. This abracadabra is very big in the world now. They're all obsessed with it. But yeah. Okay, but what about that's yourself?
What about the world shouldn't be obsessed? We should be obsessed with it because in Samach Vav, this is all the implications that the Reb Mamer of the speech of the Koach HaMalchus, what Malchus is. Malchus is kingship. A king says the whole body has to comply. There's no choice.
Malchus is peh.
Yeah.
But what about for somebody else? Your scenario was that you were influencing someone else. And they're probably not even different. It's probably the same craft you have in yourself, you have on someone else. You want to say anything about that?
Well, we cannot take a freedom of choice for anybody. And I think this is very important. But we could create space for that change to happen. If we are intertwined with that individual, yeah, and we are, as Bnei Israel, we are all connected.
That's the point, right?
Perek Lamed Beis, exactly. So we all connected. We could create goodness for that person. The space, they will choose based on their freedom of choice to align themselves with that space. But it's our responsibility to create that space if we want that change to happen.
So you're really
But again, I'm going to say what Mordechai said to Esther. If that change was destined for that person to create, what did he tell her? Right? Yeshua tavo mimakom acher. Right? It will come from another place. If you choose not to follow through, there's a very funny video, Megillus Lester. Did anybody watch with their kids? You watched it? It's a whole story how it's a bright idea actually. It's how this boy, he fell and he sees a dream of how the whole story of Esther was actually differently. What's the point of it? That the way things flow doesn't have to happen that specifically, meaning the Yeshua will come to the Jews regardless. Who, through which pathways is going to come, it's a different story. And meaning we could be part of that story or not. Esther had a choice if she's going to be part of that victory or not. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, if she says, no, I'm afraid to walk into palace. Is that a possibility? Possibility. Let's imagine that took place. What will happen to the Jews? As Mordechai said, the Yeshua will come through another place. Don't think that you are the only, and it could have come from another place. What could have happened? Haman would be walking, I don't know, and a stone would fall over his head. I don't know. There are the other ways how to come out of that situation.
I just want to try and bring it back to,
to right here, right now.
And if there's anybody who wants to just share anything that happened in the group, and then I think that we should say we're done for today.
I just want to say something. From now on, I'm going to get younger every day.
You're looking younger already.
That's a good one, yeah.
All right.
By the way, you're talking about younger, perception plays a big role. I'm 45 this year. I hardly have white hair. Why? Simply because I'm the youngest one in the family. I'm the baby. You understand? Till today, my mother brings me groceries. So, yeah. Cleaning up the. And you had a fight with him?
Okay, we're going to real life then.
She's gonna give everything.
All right. Okay, so anybody else want to say something? To share anything from their group?
I think in our group, we were sort of grappling with what's the difference between ayin, Koach Hamaskil, and omek.
Okay.
I just to put my 2 cents in, I think the confusion was between the words ayin, bittul, and omek.
Omek. Mm-hmm.
And I had the feeling that they were kind of the same thing. That space.
And I'm being potential.
Okay.
For me, that's a confusion.
In the text itself, he says that the bitul is the ayin, creates the ayin.
I said, yeah.
And we say once again, we say that the omek is an ayin. It says all in the text. Now, as I was saying, like a question is also an ayin. And I think that if you're grappling with this question, it's good. Like it's part of refining what you're bringing through that membrane. Like what is an omek the ayin? Is the bitul the ayin? It's all that space. What is an ayin? How do I activate that ayin? So he says through Hagia, that's one way. And then, I was saying earlier, he uses 2 words always with the makabel, is that there's bitul and shimamon. And Mila was saying we'll come across that later. What are those 2 aspects of the ayin? So, other than asking Mila to clarify in more detail, I think that these are good questions to hold and not to put an answer on and shut it down and say, oh, that's what it is. Because what we really want to do is access that ayin. I think that, for me, is what's coming out of today, is like, wow, the ayin is really where we want to be. And I like what Cody says, that it's a place of potential. It's not yet one thing. And drawing on Purim, that Purim story that Mila was relating, really, sorry, Mordechai says to Esther, you can step into the iron. You can choose to do that. You step into the unknown in a sense, and then the possibilities open up. And once Esther makes that decision, she's constantly dealing with the iron. She invites them to the feast. What do I do now? Do I speak about Haman? And she's constantly weighing how to draw down something that is unknown. How do you destroy Haman? We're not even sure. But she's constantly stepping into this place of iron until Hashem co-creates. And then the king cannot sleep, and all kinds of other things happen that help her, that bring Haman to the second feast completely depressed. You know, it's a very good example. I never thought about it, of really, you know, Mordechai says to her, Mi Yodea, who knows? Mi Yodea. And it's a beautiful invitation to the ayin. Who knows if for this particular moment you became queen? Or another interpretation is Mi Yodea im ka'et kazot higat lemalchut, that this moment will bring you to malchut, to bring you to your completion, to your inner dignity. And the ayin, I think, is that Mi Yodea. Who knows? It's opening into the unknown. He doesn't say, if you don't do this, this and this will happen. No, he opens it up. And she can choose to step into that ayin and continue to step into it again and again and again and again, endlessly until the end of the Megillah. If you look at it, you'll see she's constantly in the space of co-creating, of not knowing, and the stakes are high. You know, for us, the stakes are not usually so high. For her, the stakes are really high. And it's an interesting idea. As we go from, you know, the Geula of Purim to the Geula of Pesach, also to come out of Mitzrayim, there has to be, like what Mila's been talking about, that place of, I believe we can go out. And you go to what? You go out to the desert. It's an ayin. There's nothing there. And every day is an encounter with the doubt of an uncertainty and the Mi Yodea, who knows? What is the possibility?
That's beautiful. Can I mention that it just occurred to me that in a non-Jewish context, in a worldly context, the word that would describe that is risk. There's a lot of different learnings or places where I glean from, and the word risk is used. What kind of risk are you taking in life? You know, go for risk. And
yeah,
that's
but
what
Sylvia, when we're talking about risk, there is a possibility of things not working out.
But it's about going for something. It's about going for something big with, you know, taking
Exactly.
the
So
risk.
then there are no risks. No, there is no risks. That's what it is. Risks has an element of a doubt of not working out and falling.
Mhm.
When we go into the state of ayin, we want to go into the state of flow, right? From restricted, we're melting that ice into the water, right? That can now become from cube into any shape out there, right?
Right.
And we want to draw there are no risks in that. You see, the risk is Amalek. The risk tells you there's a small percent, 1%, or 0.999% of it's not working out. And bitachon is exactly the opposite. Bitachon is, I'm so sure that this is exactly what I will deliver. And I'm ready to work on purifying my vision with AI. I have no doubt that when I'm going to say, I want to have sheep, he's not going to send me wolf. You know, like there is that
In other
level.
words,
yeah.
I would put these words that any action is good. It might not be the good that I envision, but it's good. Because Hashem will redirect and recompose whatever.
Yeah,
So
it's
the-
going to be
the
full
pain.
Tovani Ravanikla. I guess the risk is how our Nefesh Bahamas perceives it. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? You know, it's like, I'm taking a risk. But
That's
we're
not what I'm talking about
No?
risk.
Okay.
Not at
So
all.
tell me, yes.
Risk
So
is
tell me-
taking that step into the unknown.
So Sylvia, I think
When you don't risk, you stay in your comfort zone. Risk is just stepping out into the midbar. You don't know where you're going to be led, but you're
Okay,
not
right.
staying comfortable and protected and safe. You're boldly taking this risk forward. And it doesn't mean that there's a possibility something not okay is happening. It's total trust that goes with it.
Total trust. Okay.
That's what I mean. That's how it's used in the context that I'm familiar with. I'm in an art context that I know, in a therapy context that I know. It's like, what is your life? What is the
type of thing?
life if you're not going to take risks? What kind of risks have you taken? Are you just hiding away in your safe space, or are you actually stepping out there and stepping through fears? That's what I mean.
Fears, right. Okay, good. So thank you for clarifying.
Sylvia, but when you speak about it, just to add to that, the word, even though once you've clarified, of course we understand, but to me, when you say the word risk, there is that just the word itself, because of the meaning associated with it, does suggest that it's risky. Maybe
scary.
It's scary. It carries connotations. So the exciting thing for me is if you as a person who's works within the therapeutic realm, if you go deeper into this concept of ayin as opposed to risk and look at that more deeply, perhaps you can come up with a language, not only a language, but a concept of this, an opening to, as Cody said, possibility. But working with, I don't know, there's something there that I think is very profound. As you started saying, in the secular and the non-Jewish world, because that risk is dealing with the animal soul. And here, Reb Hillel is taking us to another level of possibility, because we're talking about, drawing from the Koach Hamaskil. There's no risk there. There's even no risk of going crazy because you're dealing with Pele Alef. You're not
It's movement. It is movement. It's movement. You're not staying still. You're reaching out for something. And the word possibility
there's definitely an element of fear. There's definitely element of fear of the unknown, for sure. It's like, because you have no idea how this is going to turn out. There's a fear of a Nefesh Bahamas letting go of everything which you've known up until now and stepping into that space where, like, oh my gosh, what is this? Like kind of losing the metzias, melting into the experience. So that it's true, but yeah, but it's risk-free. She's going to get renewed to a level where she herself will appreciate it, and she's going to say, oh, this is how it's done. Amazing. I want to do it again.
Anyway, something to think about, to see if there is some place where it can be refined, even in terms of language.
So what I'm hearing from you is that there's more to be brought into the world. Like if all the world can come to is the concept of risk, then there's some light that we can shine on that to bring Hashem into those places. But I there's more to add to the concept of risk, is what you're saying.
Well,
I like the danger of risk.
The definition. That's what I think the ayin does. It changes the definition, because I don't know. There's more to. I think There's more to think about. That's,
Mhm.
yeah.
The,
Would you say L'chatchila river has anything to do with it? Like leap?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You're going above your membranes. Because your membranes are the limitation. Why we have a membranes in a spiritual sense? This is who I am. This is my yesh. Yeah. Meaning my yesh is how I think, what I think will work, what I think will not work, perceptions, beliefs, and so on and so forth. Any of that has its limit. L'chatchila ariba is that I'm able to tap into reality that's beyond me and really manifest. That's what the L'chatchila ariba means. It's like I don't have to dig into a talk therapy, trying to figure out what my fears are, blah, 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 blah. Let me just create my new self. That's it. Where I could see myself doing that thing. It's meaning l'chatchila ariba, meaning it's coming up, down. It's not going down, up, where I have to elevate things. It's actually coming up, down. I'm creating and I'm manifesting that reality. Where the picture, before there was a picture of a boundary, that I cannot overstep that boundary, right? That's the mashal was given. The L'chatchila ariba, I actually see myself above that boundary. That's it. There's no boundary to begin with. In my there's a boundary there is because I have a perception that I cannot go out of Mitzrayim. What should I do? I'm confined. If I could create a picture in my mind of me not being confined by that particular situation, that's my freedom. That's the L'chatchila ariba. For example, in the part of mental rehearsals, we're really overstaying out.
Yeah, yeah.
In a mental rehearsals is that when, let's say if a person has a fear of a stage, they cannot speak in a stage. That's the Mitzrayim. They can't see themselves speaking for thousands of people. How are they overcoming it? How can a person overcome it? Usually people say, just go out and just do it. People could go out and screw up the whole talk. And then that's going to, reconfirm their fear, right? Because the fear that they have will create the reality. So what are you going to do? So you do mental rehearsals. You literally will envision for 2 months, you speaking to 1,000 people from beginning till the end without any fear, feeling completely at ease and blah, 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 and all that. They literally will picture in your mind. So what will happen is you'll create neural connections that will take care of that. So now when you're actually going to have the experience, you already have done it thousands of times. At least 30 times, it will be enough. You've done it 30 times. You already conquered those fears. You already don't have them. So that's what this is, coming into play. But yeah, okay.
So Mila, you're saying that through this envisioning, you're doing the ayin, you're creating through the higia of mentally envisioning something, you're actually creating a space where there is an ayin, where there's possibility.
Because that's what shimamon. Shimamon is that I'm removing myself from my own yesh. What's my own yesh? I cannot speak in large public places. That's that person's yesh. So you remove that yesh. No, I could speak and I could actually see myself doing that. So that will create carve a hole where that could take space. So now I could put that picture into my yesh, meaning there's a process of yesh, ayin, yesh. We could do it unlimited amount of times on anything. Like, let's say there's a hanacha that if you screwed up your marriage for the first 10 years and you didn't work it out, it's probably never going to work out. There's a hanacha like this in the world. I don't know. People give different time frames for this. But is that true? No. I know people who don't, who screw it up and then at one day, they change things. So, hanacha is that if you did not lose weight, then blah, blah, blah. Hanacha is if you did not provide for a child a nurturing environment during the first 5 years, then blah, 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 right? And there are millions hanachis in the world, And is that so? No, that's a yesh And we could change that yesh. If we believe in that, that will control us. Meaning we're going to be a subject of that hanacha manifesting. But if we, change, for example, hanacha, very well known, Sarah was 90 years old when she conceived. There was a hanacha in the world. There is hanacha in the world. You cannot give birth without a womb. Yeah? Everybody agrees with that, right? That's just a normal thing, right? We call it norm. But hey, she gave birth. And that's the birth of the Jewish nation, Yitzchak. That was her hanacha. And then, she said, no, okay. She actually laughed in the beginning when she heard about it. When a malach came and told her, she laughed. About her husband, not about herself. That's another story.
Okay, Mila,
Yeah.
we need to end. Everybody, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. And then, after that, we'll be taking a break for Pesach. And I hope
Thank you very much. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
I hope that all of this just gives you, motivation to keep continuing. And we're starting, as you can see, we're starting to get to something that is more interesting, and it just gets more and more interesting from here. And if you want to prepare, I'll put on the WhatsApp group. It's the next paragraph where we look into next week. We're going to look into the rochav and the orech of chokhmah, which is the width and the length of chokhmah. So we'll complete chokhmah before Pesach, and then we'll go on to Bina and Dat after Pesach. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Thank you very, very much.
יישר כוח, תודה רבה.
Thank you.
Thank you.